Hello, I'm Chris Athanas. I'm a KMP developer. Tech Support says they're coming out Tuesday for that thing. Today, I want to be discussing and reacting to the favorite subject of all software developers. As soon as they get into software development down here, after personal projects or junior mid-level roles or senior level, you're going to be starting to get right away text. You're going to be doing these tech screens, these coding interviews, which are completely ridiculous. Lots of cargo culting happening. People trying to copy big companies because they think that they are the next Google or are Google or are going to be Google or think they're anything Google-like, and they get cargo cult these processes, which were put in place by Google and some of these other big tech companies during these boom cycles because they found out a lot of people couldn't do what they said they could do. Now, when I was doing the software development, they didn't really have this coding tech screen thing. You were expected to show your portfolio of work, though. You were expected to show something you've been working on, or at least talk extremely well about about something. But when I got involved, it was very early days, so you really kind of had to be into it already, and people kind of like. If somebody talks to you for like 20 minutes who's into whatever the thing is you're trying to get into, they're gonna kind of know. And when the money came in right around year 2000 or so, when things just kind of took off like a little crazy with the internet, that's when there was a big rush. And right around 2010, 2008, 2009, somewhere in that range, this whole like it really got intense. Like people were lying to get into these companies and just obviously not being able to code at all. So there was a reason it started, but it just went too far.
Coding interviews that you need to take before you can get a software engineering job are broken. I'm specifically referring to the ones that are similar to what are asked at Google, where you need to know intimate knowledge of algorithms and data structures to be able to pass the interview and do the problem. And
Leak code grinding. That's what it turned into. It had cracking the coding interview. That was the thing before the leak code thing took over. Now, there's been a bunch of them. It's just all the same stuff. It's little puzzles that you're supposed to solve in code. And yes, you do that on the job, but usually those puzzles are very contained to one certain area that's a problem to be solved. Man, I just never got into this whole puzzle solving thing. I was always into the problem solving, not puzzle solving, but there's a lot of people who know how to do that Rubik's Cube and all that stuff that are really into the puzzle stuff that don't often make the best engineers, but can be tasked and possibly to be trained. It seems to be a gate, especially at these big companies like Google, whatever. They wanted to put some sort of barrier up, right? So they found that this thing worked, but it's not problem solving, right? I never did the leak code stuff. I avoided it. I was like, okay, I'm just not going to do that. And I've been figuring out different ways, like having my portfolio projects. I've done a little bit of like take home code stuff, but like, man, I am trying. So what I'm trying to show is with adventure driven, you're kind of like going to sidestep that. Like if you might have to do a couple of these coding interviews down here, but the whole idea is to start going after an actual real problem where if you can code or not, it's up to you whether you can do it or not. And you don't have to be a elite coder. With all that elite code, cracking the code interview, you don't need to know that stuff, right? If you know the basics of how to get information from one place to another, and like configure stuff out, and if you really want to go down the guts of these things, like LLMs and the image processing stuff, and how all that stuff works, you can, but it's just libraries for everything, right? So you'll just have to be camped by the library, but at least you're making something happen, right? So that's my solution, is to try and have a portfolio where you can talk about projects and try and get into doing some sort of something on your own at some point as quickly as possible, because the leak code stuff is just ridiculous.
That like you're just sitting in a Google Doc and you have to basically from memory know these algorithms and be able to implement them on the spot without being able to search anything up. And the reason why they're broken is the knowledge you need to know to actually pass the interview is completely different than what you actually do on the job. They're going to be asking you to reverse a linked list, and then they want you to change the button color from blue to light blue.
Right. So on the coding thing, is like do a reverse linked list, spit out the code from scratch, right, and do it in 2 minutes. Okay, if you've already memorized how to do that stuff, all right, yeah, you can probably pull it off. But then what are you really getting? Then you're on the job, you just change the color from light blue to light blue, and you think you're at Google trying. You're actually doing this Dragon Quest thing. You're like you're trying out Epic. No, you're down here. You're down here in the tunnels of fake agile doom, scrum death matches, or maybe move up and go into a dungeon grind. Oh, okay, so you just pay a little more, but you're still be doing a feature factory Jira burn down chart. You're not doing this right here, and that's what a lot of people. So Google sells the dream of what they did 20 years ago as if it's still today, and that's it fools a lot of people, burns people out. And it's kind of uh, it's not illegal, but it's definitely ethical. Some ethical concerns there.
And even if you think you're going to be using those algorithms on the job, it's different because you're not having to recite it from memory. You can just at any time open up Stack Overflow
Right.
or Google and actually see what the algorithm is and then write it as you're doing it. Or what's probably going to happen is you literally just install a third-party library to do the algorithm for you because it's very battle tested and there's no bugs.
Yeah,
Coding
right. Well, mostly. Yeah, so let's go keep deep diving with continuous delivery. We're gonna be going into the annoying truth about tech interviews and tech interviews in 2024. Let's listen to what she has to say. Let's just rewind this here and get her started.
There's something very broken about the process of assessing our technical skills during the interview process. We've all been through it. We've answered questions, written code on whiteboards, puzzled out brain teasers, and selected multiple choice responses for made-up programming languages. More often than not, we are deemed inadequate. It's not you, it's them. Technical interviews are fundamentally broken, and I will tell you why.
I mean, when I came back in 2012, this was the standard, the gold standard of how to hire people. I'm like, are you serious for real? Now, I was lucky enough that had enough some skills. They weren't super intense around 2012, but they started ramping up around 2016 or so. They started to get a little crazy with it, and I mean, did we get better products out of it? Did we get better code out of it? Unknown.
Hello, I'm Joshua G. Welcome to the Continuous Delivery channel, where we like to give advice that helps developers to grow. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you find the advice helpful. In order to get a job as a developer, of course, the hiring organization is going to want to see if you can actually do the job. They've read your CV or resume, and now they're going to test your ability to do the job. The only thing is, they're not. The technical interview is, at best, loosely correlated to the skills you're going to use.
Yeah.
At worst, it's an exercise in gatekeeping and making the hiring developers feel smart.
Yeah. But that's always been part of it, right? That's always been part, especially these big companies who once they're out of their startup phase, they're in the preserver phase, and the preservers are all about the leak code. They can leak code all day long. Oh, it's a checklist of things. I just have to grind through it, literally leak code grinding, and like put up with all this bullshit. But these are only these puzzles. Or if I just study the hell out of these and don't worry about APIs or customer psychology or product market fit or how business works or what these tools are actually doing, and what this job actually entails, how sustainable this is, like no, just leak code. Okay.
In this video, we're going to explore why technical interviews are so broken, why failure is actually a good thing, and what you can do to improve your chances of getting a job. While there are lessons here for hiring organizations, not least of all, train your interviewers, this is aimed at you if you want to get a job in the industry.
How is that going to be possible? Train interviews? What? If you're a good developer, you're not going to be interviewing people. You're going to be grinding out the code. But come on.
I want to thank our sponsors, Equal Experts, Transfic, Tuple, and Honeycomb. These companies offer products and services that complement the content we cover on this channel. Links are in the description. Please take a look. Why is it so hard to interview people? It's actually because we don't know what makes a good developer. We can't ask the questions and set tasks if we don't know the actual skills required. For example, in your day job, when was the last time you actually reversed a linked list?
86, 1987 maybe? I don't know. It's been a long time. Usually you use the library for that.
Or wrote code on a whiteboard?
I don't know. The code on the whiteboard thing is not really that. I think we did that way back in the day, like when we would talk about certain things. But really, even then, we just used boxes and lines. Like in my programming course, How to Program from the Ground Up, I talk about this. It's like box, line, circle, box, boxes and lines and boxes within boxes, lines between boxes. There's a lot of that stuff. conceptual, conceptual layers. But code on the whiteboard, never really did that.
Or use a framework without help from Google, Stack Overflow, or an AI.
Impossible. I say it's impossible. I say if you actually are trying to memorize how these frameworks and all the codes and languages and stuff like works without some sort of assistance from Stack Overflow or for God, Stack Overflow or ChatGPT just at least giving you somewhere in the ballpark of how these things are. I mean, the AI coding assistants have gotten a lot better. I mean, they're not hallucinating nearly as much, but still they do spit out the wrong stuff because it's like, I don't know what you mean. Without these tools, these APIs, there's too many of them. They're changing all the time. Stuff gets deprecated, new stuff comes in, and the AIs can't even keep up with it because they're giving you the old stuff, the new stuff. The Stack Overflow can't even get rid of the old answers. Yeah, it's just the most popular one for the thing it was 3 versions ago. It's like, yeah, and so that's where all the work, right? If we had these answers already in the documentation, if Google put it already made it so you didn't have to really think about the stuff so hard and designed it instead of slapping it together real quick before somebody else comes along, which is now, right? This stuff is all going to have to be rewritten. All the stuff we use has to be rewritten. It's all been built on this stuff, right? All this crazy stuff, trying to get to the market as quick as possible, as if that's how you solidify things. Really, just get there as quick as possible. Okay, there are times for that, but then I've seen there's so many companies that was their main strategy is to get there first that aren't here around anymore. Okay, so let's just calm our jets.
Assistant. What we actually do is debug existing code, work within the limitations of the frameworks and the design used in this project. We ask the business questions about what they really need, and we weigh up pros and cons of different approaches given the constraints of our environment.
Yeah, that's the real job. That is the job. There's a lot of talking, a lot of what the hell is this? Why was this done like this? Who wrote this? Oh, that was 3 teams ago. Don't worry about that. We're gonna need to fix a few bugs. You're not building up stuff in libraries. We're gonna do first thing we're gonna do is reverse a linked list. It's like, you're not gonna do any of that stuff. It's like, what are we doing? How's this work? What was the thinking behind this? Is this design make sense? Does it even work? Does it even is this how the customers are viewing it? Or is the reason why this button has to change color? Is there something else going on I should know about that may be better approach to the thing? It's all this other crap.
We are not algorithm machines. Another problem lies with those asking the questions and deciding who to hire.
Yeah.
Like us, they are human and basically living bags of biases and assumptions.
Yeah.
It's okay to look for someone you'll enjoy working with as an interviewer. Dave Farley said to me when I was interviewing people, are you going to learn from this person? Do you want to sit with them and pair program with them? That's valid. However, we do have to be careful not just to pick people who feel familiar, who are just like us. And we are bad at that, even with training. We are much worse without training. For example...
For sure, especially in an environment where there's just so much zero interest rate money going around and people are just winging it. They were just a product manager at the local paint store. They're a paint store delivery driver a few weeks ago. They finished the boot camp and now they're not cooking. They used to were cooking 3 months ago, and now they're doing React modules. I mean, the environment for a lot of this stuff was just not really software engineering focused. It was more like, let's go. I got some money. I can hire some people. Let's see if we can pump something out before and make $1 million before we go bust. There's a lot of that.
It feels natural to look at people's hobbies and interests to see if we would get on with them. This is, in many countries, actually illegal. Think about what hobbies and interests tell us about this person's life outside of work. Do they have children? Are they perhaps living with disabilities? Are they perhaps living a life which is very different to ours? Nowadays, I prefer to ask people when I'm interviewing them about actual technical challenges they've faced. It gives me a better idea of how they think, what they value, and whether that's going to work for them.
Yeah, that's how it was when I got started with this stuff. That's how all the interviews went, where it was a little bit of coding stuff, but it was mostly this stuff. It was like, well, what have you done in the past? How would you do this in the future? What do you think some approaches are? It was all that kind of stuff.
For me or not. Many places do offer training to people who perform technical interviews, but you will find many interviewers who, for example, have not thought about what they actually want from the candidate, have not been taught how to evaluate the responses of a candidate, and do not know what you can't ask candidates about. It's worth understanding that interviewing is a bit like dating, for better or for worse. It's a two-way match. It's not just about making us likable to the companies they hire us. It's also about us finding a company that's going to work for us, where we're going to be comfortable working, where we are going to grow professionally. In the early days of job hunting, me and my friends would get really upset if we were turned down by a company. We thought that we weren't good enough.
No, I knew that I wasn't good enough. I knew that I was hacking my way and I didn't have all the credentials. I don't have all the schooling. I didn't do all the things. I didn't go to the internships. I didn't do any of that stuff. I was just had my computer stuff, and then I was interested in it. And by hook or by crook, I would hobble stuff together and figure stuff out and do classes when I could, and sleep on a cot, like have a roommate. Like it was like, I was just trying to make it through, and I was definitely not doing in the normal path. So when I got rejected, I knew it was me.
Really needed the job, and we didn't want to put ourselves through that humiliation all over again.
Oh, I didn't mind. I got so the thing is, every time I would do these interviews, I would learn something new. I would just like know before, and so early on when I was doing the interviewing before I would do my software company, it was super fun. Every interview was really interesting. When I came back after 2012, they started doing this stuff, this rote cargo cult stuff, and we weren't talking about things. It was not nearly as fun. I still went through and did it and realized, even though I've did all this computer stuff, it doesn't matter. Well, if you don't use your skills in 2 years, you're done. You're done. So you got to start over, which I don't mind. I don't mind starting over. What the hell? So I knew it was always me coming in. So I never took this thing like, you bastards. Is always like, nope, I'm not good enough yet. Keep going.
And again, and again. Later, after a series of suboptimal jobs, we all realized that being turned down by an organization for being not a good fit or not technical enough was probably a good thing. We did not want to work for organizations that saw having people skills as a sign of not having technical skills. We did not want to work for places where you had to do it their way and no other options are considered.
Right.
We did not want to work for teams who had never hired someone from our background before.
So that's why I do say, like, before you do adventure driven, I mean, you might get lucky, like if you're one of the crazy ones, like very small, tiny percentage of people. But like you like adventure driven stuff becomes like interesting after you've been down here and talking in these companies, like she's talking about all this junk down here, which is most companies, right? So that's why it's like you don't want you're going to get into these things and automatically if you're going to do software development, and just realize there is another route, right? There is this other adventure driven route, but it does take guts. You got to have some courage. You got to have some creativity. And and it takes a long time slogging down in here. It can take years and years. And you don't have the energy left over to make the pump up the mountain, or have the skill, or see the insights, or have something that makes it so you can think you can make it. And it was like, even then, it's just like no guarantee.
We don't want to work everywhere, but we do want to maximize our chances of being offered the job that is at the right sort of organization for us. You can improve your chances of success in technical interviews. Being good at interviews is a skill. There are high schools that prep kids for certain types of universities, and they teach them what to expect in the university interview and how to look good. Being good at interviews is not about lying. It's not about faking it until you make it. It's about putting the best you forward. And it's about getting past the arbitrary gatekeeping, the poorly trained interviewers, and the tick box responses to standard questions. My first piece of advice for getting good at technical interviews is to research common topics. In the mid-noughties, when I was interviewing a bunch in London trying to find good Java developer jobs, you had to answer Java concurrency questions in a very specific way. You had to be able to spot common problems in multi-threaded code.
Ugh, multi-threaded, ugh. This stuff is so gnarly, terrible to work with. Ugh. This Kotlin concurrency does this coroutine model, how it interleaves it into the source code, not this thread stuff. It's so much more genius.
Like shared state that could be updated by different threads.
Ugh.
This was despite the fact that most Java jobs at the time used servlets, and code was usually stateless and effectively single-threaded.
Right. So they had already transitioned from the previous thing to the current thing. So they were interviewing people who kind of knew about this previous thing and were like understood how amazing this current thing is. Like, okay, right. And this has been the whole thing. They're always interviewing from the past 3 years or so. That seems to be about what anything back before that was way before they were there. Because most developers, let's be honest, they only stay around for two or 3 years at a job, and I don't know, usually out of the business in 5, because it's just so cutthroat and burnout.
Change and technologies move on, But even these days, some interviewers are looking for you to mention the synchronized keyword when talking about multi-threaded Java, even though there are many newer and arguably better ways to handle concurrency.
For sure. For sure. Yeah.
Sometimes it's a case of using the right keyword in your interview answers. More on that in a minute. Use search engines and social media, and if available, attend local user groups to research common topics for technical interviews of the type of job that you're applying for.
Yeah, the local user group or developer group or whatever, you can get involved with that. That is a pretty much a way to get in. But you're still going to have to, even though you're trying to interview for these other ones, you might have to do, in the beginning, a tunnel of fake agile doom or a dungeon grind or tar pit is seemingly a good idea, or one of these lead mines. Or you might have to work for an agency for a while before you can do adventure driven. So, but adventure driven should be like when you people like this vibes with you, the adventure driven ideas. You probably were thinking about this way in the beginning, right? And some people go straight up the mountain, go for it. But some of us have to go down in here. It's not bad. You do learn a lot, and you learn about what's bad. But if you can like not think that this is the way, just the way that they're doing it here is the way it's done, you can generate a lot of insight.
These will vary depending on the programming languages, the business domains, and even the cities of the jobs you're applying for. I'm not convinced that technical certifications and exams are a genuine indication of a developer's ability, but skimming through certification prep websites or books with example questions and answers can be a good way to learn industry jargon and the expected responses to certain types of problems. So let's talk a bit more about jargon and the words we use. It's important to know the right words when you're in a technical interview. You may be using polymorphism every day in your code. You may understand it in your bones. But if you don't use the magic word polymorphism during the interview, particularly if your interviewer isn't technical and is looking to tick off the right answers, you won't pass that interview.
Ugh. Oh well. I'm so bad with that kind of the box ticking stuff. My brain doesn't. It just doesn't work like that. So, and I do understand that people can get past these interviews and not really understand what's happening just by using the words. So she's right.
I used to think that knowing the right words was secondary to being able to apply the techniques, but using the right terminology is a shortcut to help you communicate with someone else about that technology. You can brush up on technical terms with a bit of internet research, although searching for them can be tricky if you don't know what the words are yet. But you don't need a computer science degree to learn about algorithms, object-oriented or functional programming, or design patterns.
Definitely not.
I used to skim through headfirst design patterns when I was actively looking for a new job. It is never a waste of time to have a high-level understanding of design patterns for job interviews.
Ugh. Okay. Design patterns in C++ though, not that stuff. I mean, just like how things are set up. A lot of the videos like I've already done on my channel here, I go into some of these things. But like, if a company is making you memorize stuff, it's like they're kind of focusing on the wrong stuff, in my opinion. But again, they do, and you might have to go through one or two of these things, and knowing how they are structured is useful.
Even if they don't ask you to explain a design pattern of your choice, which, by the way, is a common interview question, you can squeeze it into your answers anyway to show how smart you are. Which leads me to the next point. Take the interview in your direction. One of the reasons
this is a great one. I do this all the time. I'll start talking about my stuff. I'll derail it and go into things I've worked on and I've worked on and working on and kind of sometimes overwhelmed with detail. I mean, that's kind of a strategy. I'm just a little bit autistic guy anyway, so I'm in my overload just because my brain works that way. But they can also tell like that's the kind of person that will get things done and go into the weeds and make sure it's working and stick it out.
Reasons interviews are so difficult is because they can all be very different.
Yeah, everyone's been different. Every single I have not had two technical interviews be the same at all. So it's sort of like, honestly, they kind of know in the first 30 seconds. They just do. I mean, this is how it is. I mean, there's been a lot of studies on this. So they're just trying, what you're doing after that first 30 seconds is just validate their initial gut reaction. So that's why a lot of this stuff is just kind of luck. A lot of it's luck if the person likes you. That's kind of how it is. Sorry.
Organization and each individual interviewer is looking for something different. You can't possibly learn all of those things. Learn some things really well.
Yeah.
Ideally, some of the common themes that crop up if you can identify them. Also, look for areas where you're already strong and practice telling a story around that. Have you had a lot of practice Demoing applications to end users?
Yeah, so that's what I'm doing on this channel. I'm demoing applications to end users. Like I'm doing it. I like actually demoing stuff to people. Since I was a little kid, it's been fun. I'm a kind of a Ken Thompson kind of guy. Like I think it's interesting, but I like to see other people's response to some of the stuff I built and how I built it and why I built it the way I did.
Be sure to work into the conversation how you were trusted to communicate to users and to listen to their concerns and feed that back to the team.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of that. It's just kind of natural thing to do. I'm surprised it has to be mentioned.
Did you create an internal tool to solve a specific problem? Work out a way to talk about how you identified the problem, what things you were considering when you designed the tool, which patterns or technologies you selected and why, and how you got buy-in to develop the tool and get others to use it.
Right, it could be an internal tool, it could be something for your own thing, it could be an app, it could be like a web script, something, a web scraper, doesn't matter.
If you spend the whole interview just reacting to their questions and guessing what they need, you're missing the chance to show them your best side. Show them what you're good at, even if you work it into the conversation by not quite answering a sort of related question. This way, you show them who you are. And if that doesn't suit them, you don't want to work there anyway.
True. True. A lot of this stuff is like, okay, this person is just not going to fit in here. And that's just how it is. And that's just how it is. Let me ask you this. Do you like everybody? No? You don't like everybody? There's definitely people you don't like, you'd rather not be around? Well, do other people get that too? Yeah, they can do that too. That's fine. It's just how humans are. And then can they do it to you personally? Yeah, they can. That's okay. What's wrong with that?
That's much better than being rejected because you couldn't write an algorithm to reverse a linked list on a whiteboard with no access to Google. Like any skill, the skill of being good at interviews takes practice. It's a numbers game. You're more likely to succeed if you attend more interviews.
Yeah.
You're more likely to improve if you've been interviewed a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Say yes.
Yeah, there's people that will do like fake interviews, fake tech interviews for you. And you can like pay people for this as well. But there's also ones I think they'll do it for free. People will do it for free. I don't know. It used to be. I definitely have used those before. But honestly, it's just getting up the bat. Even if it's a job you don't really like and don't think you really want, and just get bat runs in. Even if it's from a different area, like just going on interviews, even for jobs that you don't want. It's super useful. Like it just gets you out of the nervousness of it, right? A lot of it's like the nervousness doesn't let your true self shine through, which they're looking for. A lot of these people are rooting for you. Right? That's the other thing too. It's like I said, the people hate you, right? But some people actually are rooting for you, and they just need you to get past their minimum filter so they don't take heat. So a lot of it's that stuff. So I've had like it's very common when I've been interviewing people myself. I'm rooting for them. I'd like to get this process done with and move on to getting the things done. And I'm looking for a not no, right? I'm like trying to say, I would like to make this person go through. I'm that kind of interviewer. And there's a lot of people like that because they just want to get through the process. And if they think you're enough to bring you in, they would like you to slot in. So but there's some guys, some interviewers that are looking to exclude you. That's the Google stuff. So they're filtering out 10,000 to get to the 3 or 4 that are the perfect fit, which they can do because they get 10,000 candidates, right? So and this interviewing thing goes back and forth. Like sometimes there's like less employees, and the businesses have to pay more and reduce their requirements, and then it swings back to the employees have to step up the game, and the employers or the people hiring do more of the we don't know, we have to like let people go and all that stuff. It goes back and forth. It's just been like that forever.
Yes to interviews for jobs you don't really want. It's good practice, and they might surprise you. For juniors, the practice is basically mandatory. But even later on in your career, practicing interviews is valuable. Fashions and trends in interviews change.
Yeah.
You may be rusty at interviews.
Oh, for sure.
You may benefit from a confidence boost from knowing the answers to these things.
Yeah.
You may also learn that you actually like your job, or you may gain a better understanding of what you're looking for in a new job.
Yeah.
In summary,
if you're lucky,
technical interviews are broken.
Yeah.
It's quite depressing to consider how little we still know about evaluating a developer's ability to do the job. All is not lost. Passing a technical interview.
The reason why that is because you're having people interview that don't know how to do the job. For people that know how to do the job, Interviewing them is not that bad. It's not that bad if you know the job. But what we've had the cycle of the last 15 years or so of the ZERP is a lot of people interviewing that just didn't know how to do the job or didn't know the product, or they were asked to do the interviewing because they're not busy as much as somebody else. And also the demand was so high for developers there for a while that they were just letting a lot of people in maybe that shouldn't have been in, and that were able to game the system, which is legit to me. That's fine. That looks skin off my nose.
Interview is a skill like any other, even if it's often not at all related to the day job. And remember, this is a two-way process. You're interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you. You want to showcase the best you that you can, and you also want to check that the normal version of you would be comfortable working at that job, even if it's only until the next opportunity comes along.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting us on Patreon.
Yeah, let's go over there. I'm going to leave these links in the deedly-do. But yes, the tech interviews are broken, but we're gonna have to deal with it, and that's just the way it goes. And if we take the attitude of it's just gonna take as long as it takes, and we're gonna keep going for as long as it takes to get it going until we're done it, or you got the thing, that's how it works. That's how it works. I didn't make the rules. Give me a like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon.